بالله العلي العظيم اللهم إني أبرئ إليك حولي وقوتي يا أرحم الراحمين. The topic that I was given is about the heart, the human heart, and it's a topic that's fascinated me for a long time. Not only the spiritual heart, but also the physical heart. And I was actually on a cardiac unit for several years and spent a lot of time with people that had had heart attacks. In fact, I took care of a lot of people with heart attacks, and I saw people die from heart attacks in front of me. And something always really amazed me about seeing somebody that came in to a hospital with a heart attack is that there was a type of opening that they had, a window, where suddenly they were challenged deep within their own souls to assess their situation, to assess their lives, and to really think about what they were doing with their lives. And yet, as they started getting better, and not all of them did, but the ones that did, as they started getting better, you could see that window close. And they were back on the phone and making plans to go back to work and to go back into the dunya. And really forgot what had happened to them. And then you would have these physicians that would come in and tell them how their cardiac enzymes were down and looking good, and it was a mild heart attack and really nothing to worry about. And you'll be back in the fray, in the rat race. They didn't use that word, but that's really what it meant. You'll be back in the rat race soon enough, and you'll pedal around some more on that, like in those rat cages where they have that wheel that rats spin around on. You're not really going anywhere. The nearer you are to your destination, the more you're slip-sliding away, like an American songwriter said. And before long, they were gone. And who knows, maybe a lot of them have died already. And maybe some of them are still ticking. But we know that the heart is the most extraordinary organ in the entire body. We know, for instance, now that the heart is pulsating at about 40 million times a year. In the human lifespan, your heart will pulsate about 3 billion times. It takes about 40 gallons of blood an hour. You try to get some buckets, get 40 gallons and move them from one room to another and see how tired you are. And yet this extraordinary organ that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put into the body continues to pump throughout our lives, effortlessly. Not asking us for anything, not even asking us to tell it to pump for us. And even more unusual about the heart is now we know that the heart is actually, not only is it self-regulating, it begins beating before there's a central nervous system. Who made the heart beat before there was a central nervous system? Who made the heart beat? The one that created the heart made it beat and sustains its beat, and then one day it stops beating. And this form in time suddenly leaves and goes to another realm. And during our life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has challenged us. He called the heart qalb, and I say He called because I believe, like many of the scholars, although there's difference of opinion about it, that the Arabic language is tawqifiyah, that it was made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the Qur'an, that it's a language, like one Orientalist said, this is the most artificial language in existence. In other words, it's very clear that it wasn't a conventional language like English. English is really a Creole that resulted from pidgin languages. Pidgin languages are when people from different original languages come together and they try to communicate with each other. So like a West African came to when they were brought here from West Africa during the period of slavery in this country, illegally brought against international law at that time, which was the law of the Muslims, because they were the international community. Now it's the Anglo-American alliance. When they say international community, read English and Americans. Because it should be two nations community. That's what they should call it. Right? They shouldn't call it international community like it's a whole bunch of nations together, because it's not. It's just the Americans and the British. And really they're one people, the Anglo-Saxons. And all the other white people they're not really part of the Anglo-Saxon. They're not even accepted by them. In this country, they used to have a word, they used wasp. I think that's one of the few words that's still not in the politically correct prohibited dictionary. There's a whole bunch of words that are prohibited. You could still say wasp, right? Because there's a lot of people that have been victims of the wasp sting. And so they're not reluctant to put that in that dictionary. But the wasp is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And these were the people that came to this country from England. In fact, they were really like Khawarij in the Islamic history. Because the Khawarij were people, they didn't like the rulers, so they just broke off and did their own thing. And that's what the Americans did, ultimately. And then they split, come together again. And they're ruling the world, and they're not doing a very good job of it. And in fact, it's really from the absence of the Muslims from the quote-unquote international community. But anyway, at that time it was illegal. And in fact, it was actually illegal. International slave trade was outlawed in the 1820s. A lot of people don't know that, but it continued by American slavers illegally, even by their own laws. So they were actually bringing people over from West Africa illegally by their own laws for several decades, until it was finally stopped. Really, it's going to go into the 1880s, because they were bringing slaves to the Caribbean area and also to South America. But when the slaves came over, like the West Africans in Gambia, Senegal, or Senegambia, they say woke. Woke means okay. And a lot of people don't know that. You see, it's the most American word there is, and it's actually a word from West Africa. You tell the white supremacists that, and they'll stop using it, probably. Right? You're speaking West African dialect when you say, well, okay. So they tell the West African, go bring those, put those over there, and he'd say, well, okay. That's how he would respond. And then they would say that to them then. They understood that means okay. They'd say okay. And that became part of the language. So English is a language that really resulted in a lot of different peoples coming together. And then their children, from a pidgin language, the children will create a Creole language. And so all of the languages that we speak today in the world are actually Creole languages. In fact, Urdu is a Creole language, right? Urdu is mixed up of Sindhi and Persian and Arabic, right? Like in Urdu they say, "Ke ya musibat hai." You know, what a musiba, you know, and a musiba is an Arabic word. Where'd they get that word from? Right? Where'd they got it from the Arabs. And they added to it their own things. Right? This is what they say. Or they say, like I would say, Urdu nahi ma'loom hai. Right? And ma'loom means it's known. But that's Arabic. But the Pakistanis, they know that's Urdu. Because he doesn't know where it came from. Right? And then when he starts learning Arabic, he says, hey, that's from Urdu. Right? But it's not, it's from Arabic, because Arabic's the first language, it's the mother tongue. It's the language of our mother, Hawa, and our father, Adam, alayhi salam. And their words are Arabic names. So this Arabic is not an arbitrary language, it's not a conventional language, it's not a agglutinated language, just sticking things together. The word in Arabic for heart is qalb. That's one of the words. The Arabs have a lot of words for heart. One of the words is qalb. Now if you take that and switch the letters around, you get qabila. And there's a science of the meanings of the words when you switch the letters around. Like you have a word like ilm, which means action. If you switch the letters around, you get amal, which knowledge, and then you get amal, action. Because knowledge and action are related. And qalb and qabila are related also. And qalb and qabla, before, are also related. Because the heart knows something that it knew before it came into this realm. You see, the heart knows, alastu bi rabbikum. The heart knows the answer to that question. Bala shahidna. Indeed, we testify to that truth.